Whenever you're doing H-2A, you have a 3/4 contractual agreement with the United States of America. So it's a federal contractual agreement with DOL that you petitioned to be able to be a part of. So these people don't want to mess up. They have a license, and then they use that license, whether it's a license to transport or not transport, and they use that to gain access to the H-2A workers, which are coming over from multiple different companies.
Welcome to Insurance Shoptalk. This is the podcast where the world of commercial insurance gets a little closer to home. I'm your host, Eric Stein, and in every episode, we're taking a deep dive into the insurance industry, from the latest news and trends to in-depth interviews with insurtech experts, carriers, and agency newsmakers. We're covering it all. So sit back, tune in, and let's start the conversation. All right, so today we have Kimberly Sanders with Harbor America. Kimberly specializes in an incredible ag program that I thought would be really interesting to get Kimberly on to speak to the agent community, just because that's a very that's a niche that only a few agents really know well, and some agents I think would like to potentially explore going after agriculture, especially if they're in a area like Florida or California and so on that has an opportunity for that kind of business. And so, Kimberly, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me.
So, so why don't we just jump right in? Why don't you, Kimberly, go into a little bit about, your background in the ag side, Harbor America background, some definitions of the kind of programs you have, so we can just jump right in.
So I've been in the ag space for almost my entire life. Our family was into farming, watermelons, tomatoes, bell peppers, that kind of stuff. At 17 years old, I began doing payroll myself for agricultural companies. Back then we didn't have H-2A, but it was just regular domestics. But there were still the same problems, trying to get the piece rate and trying to get all these things, to be compliant with what DOL and wage and hours were requiring. Went to work for Farm Up Incorporated, which is Littman's now, which is one of the largest providers of vegetables in the entire nation. It's located in my hometown of Immokalee, Florida. And went on to keep doing that. So married into a family that had farm labor contractor, which is what farmers typically hire to come do the contractual agreement to harvest the crops, plant the crops, sometimes pull plastic, whatever. So I would say that even within the town I am, we used to be the citrus capital of the world. Where I live now, which is 20 minutes from my hometown, and where I used to live was the tomato capital of the world. So when you're thinking about the United States of America, all the harvesting and a lot of the labor came out of right here in Florida, in our little Southwest Florida towns. So long time. And with Harbor America, they've been doing this. They celebrated 28 years this year, and they've been doing the ag space for about 18 of it. They were one of the first entities or PEO groups. And whenever, we'll discuss PEO in a little bit later, but to take on that by the horns, as Mr. Lowry likes to say it, the department vision president. So
awesome. Yeah. So why don't you kind of talk then about how, in general, the ways that an agent can access the product for ag, the PEO, the ASO, standalone comp, all the different options.
The way that people typically reach out to me right now is that, they want to be able to offer something and offer it with people that really know the compliance aspects of ag. So, when people are thinking at a PEO level, professional employer organization, they think of ADP or Trinet or something like that, but none of them have that niche for ag. It's a specific niche that when Venture acquired our company, they wanted to be able to offer. So whenever you're thinking about being an agent or a broker or something like that, and you're thinking of doctors, lawyers, CPAs, just regular, what they call blue collar or white collar companies, we think of ag space as, we say it in Spanish, sin cuello, because it's no collar, right? We're hands to dirt. So when we're talking about our space, we want to give them another thing to offer, because something my dad always say was, if you have all the proper tools in the tool shed, you're able to do a better job, right? So in the economy and the way that things are, ag and farming is something that's a necessity every day. So if you can offer ag, then it's just another loop on your buckle, or what is it? Another loop on your belt to be able to offer to people. So you would just send me, you know, if you are starting to offer it, you could send the leads to me. I could help educate you on what you would need to ask for and see if it's even something that you want to move forward with. But it is seasonal. Once you make a farmer happy, they're going to come back every year. Seasons only run an H2A up to 10 months. So some of them you'll have for 6 months, 6 weeks, 6 months, 10 months, but it's all a contractual agreement with the United States of America. So it's verbatim, like this is what they got to pay. And so it's a lot of intricacies that we handle on our side, but something for you guys, you know, that want to be offering it, agents or whatever, to know that you can see it before it's even coming, because you can literally pick up their contracts online. It's for anyone to see, and you can say, oh, they're going to work from March to October. I'd really like to be able to offer them workman's comp or payroll, or find them someone that can be able to do that, because we can't do that in-house, you know, the way that you guys will be looking at it. So, and we can.
That makes sense. So the options then will be under the PEO model, which again, the PEO is a co-employment arrangement whereby the all the payroll taxes for the agricultural company or farm labor contractor is
And
basically under one FEIN, which is the PEO. But what that does is give that client access to the pricing and expertise with the payroll services, HR, compliance, risk, and everything that goes inside of that at a very discounted rate. It's kind of like going to Costco to get your, you know, work comp, payroll, HR, risk
all in
management
one.
all rolled into one at a better
Yep.
price you could possibly get on your own, because, you know, now there's millions of dollars in premium versus hundreds of thousands of premium in a single client. So
Well,
they get, yeah.
yeah, that is one of the main things that people look at, but it also takes a lot of stress off your shoulders, right? Because you have someone that the company's sending to be trained for all the new labor laws. And so like if you're doing your job and you're not able to have access to this or send people for training because it costs so much, then you want to have a team member, which was where a PEO comes in HR, in any of those other spaces that you may or may not have employees and have them on site to do. You have that in our ag program as well, because we go to all the new labor law conventions every single year, and we get updated in all the compliance aspects of it. So you're partnering with someone to not only make your company be able to grow, but be able to grow and know what you're doing. So your ROI is going to be higher, because you're eliminating maybe some of the onboarded staff that you have by just paying one company to at once to be able to do all those things for you in
Especially
one
since it's a
setting.
short-term 10-month
Yep.
arrangement, it doesn't make a lot of sense to start to get all these things set up and then just, you know, sitting in idle with it. So you might as
Yeah.
well, if possible, if it's a fit, you know, take care of all the payroll, the work comp, compliance, risk, and everything into one pack,
Auditing.
5 or 6 vendors into one, right?
Exactly.
And then the other option you and I were talking about would be, let's say the client said, you know, I do have a payroll mechanism now. I don't really want to change it at this moment. I will look at it later, but I do need the work comp. Then there's a potential of doing some other programs you have access through to QBE. They've got some other kind of restrictions though about H2A and group transportation that you don't have with your, and by the way, the program you have is with Sons Insurance, which is
Mhm.
A-rated, right? Under
Yes,
the
sir.
PPO model. And
Hmm.
then under the ASO slash client work comp policy, QBE could be an option. And then also some clients hire you, you mentioned they keep their own work comp, but then they layer in your services, which we can commission a PEO. We give commission to agents on just the PEO that could sometimes be equivalent to what they would make on the work comp as well.
Yeah,
You know, so
exactly.
if they're the agent on the work comp, they're going to make the commission there, and they're going to make it on the fee that the PEO charges for all the services, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So a lot of different ways, I guess, to get access to kind of put people at ease. But like when you're talking to folks, I mean, how valuable is it that, you know, like many times when we're agents that are out there and just selling traditional work comp or construction or manufacturing, whatever, you know, getting into that payroll conversation sometimes is kind of a bit of a hassle. They just want the work comp, the client does. So, but in this world, I mean, the payroll has got to be very intricate. So talk a little bit about that and why they would even say, wait, they're probably more apt to use you under the payroll model versus just comp, I would assume.
Well, because of so whenever you're doing H-2A, you have a 3/4 contractual agreement with the United States of America. So it's a federal contractual agreement with DOL that you petitioned to be able to be a part of. So these people don't want to mess up. They have a license, and then they use that license, whether it's a license to transport or not transport, and they use that to gain access to the H-2A workers, which are coming over from multiple different companies. The misconception is that they only come from Mexico, and that is very wrong. South Africans come, Jamaicans come, Brazilians come, Colombians come, people from Guatemala, Mexico, and it's just based on what type of commodity that they're going to be working in, whether it's cotton or coffee beans or whatever it is that you're harvesting, grapes, whatever, because each people have a different, they're better at it. So they look at the different countries to pull them from, right? So you have this contract, you pull them over, and then you have to meet a minimum requirement for the payroll. So all across the states, each state has a different AWAR rate. So here in Florida, it's 1563. In Georgia, it's 1576. And North Carolina, it might be 1581. Over on the East Coast right now, it's like almost $20. In California, I think it's like 1979. And in Seattle, it's like 1976 or something. So you have to know what that rate is so that you can be compliant with it. And if you're doing piecework, which is a whole nother realm of ideas that you have to do, you have to be able to map it to make sure you're meeting those minimum payroll requirements, because you're taking piecework, converting it over to hours, and then making sure that it meets that. If you're doing units and piecework in the same day, you have to break that down to meet that AWAR rate.
What's
And
that?
there's
What's that AWAR stand for?
average employer wage rate.
Okay.
So it's governed. So like, you know how we have minimum wage in our states? That's out the door. In H-2A, the AWAR rate is what you use. So H-2A workers make more. Like I'm from Florida, minimum wage right now is $12. Minimum wage for AWAR right now is it's 15 something dollars. I think it's 1563 in Florida. So we have a map that says what all the states are. And then so you have to make sure that you do that. So that's why we go and we learn all the stuff. We bring it back to the office. We have 3 women on our staff that have been doing this forever. That are very knowledgeable in the ag space. And that's what we're able to help our clients. Even the processing of the check, the way the check stub looks has to meet a compliance with wage and hours. So if you go on our website and you were to look, you would see the first thing you see is, does your check look like this? Because that's what's required. You have to show the hours that are offered, the hours that are worked, and see where that makeup is, why or why not, and how the mapping of the payments are. So it's a lot of intricacies, but there again, you know, if you are gaining access to these clients, when you go to, I'm not familiar with what you have in your area, Kroger's, is that what y'all have over there on that coast? When you go to Kroger's, what are you going to buy? Food. Who makes food? Farmers do. So when you're thinking about, well, why would it be smart for me to try to offer this to people? There's your answer right there. You have to have food to be able to survive. And your farmer is who puts that on your table, utilizing an FLC, which is a farm labor contractor. And that farm labor contractor has to go out and get help, a lot of help, specifically in Florida right now, because of our new E-Verify law doesn't come right here because of E-Verify. It has to be brought in from other countries. So I would say Florida and California 3 years ago, California had more H-2A workers than Florida did, but Florida and Georgia combined now make California look like they're just playing in a golf game somewhere, like, and it's only got 18 holes. Like, there is no comparison. We have the highest H-2A rate in the states right now, just in our areas, because of the need for the workers. So when you're thinking of a way to make extra money, like you were saying, it would be offering this program, because it's a win-win. Obviously, if we can make it work, then you got a client. And that client, the way that ag works is, if you help them, they're going to tell all of their friends, and most of their friends are their family, and they're going to bring them to you because of a trust. They have a very big trust way that they work together in that community. So
that makes total sense. So it's kind of turnkey then. They know, because you specialize in this, they're going to get the proper way to do payroll, make sure they're in compliance with the Department of Labor. Whereas again, if it's just a construction company, they're not held to as many
Yeah.
standards. If they're using a payroll service, they're pretty much they're set. But then you've got the expertise right in the niche, of ag.
Yeah. We we just recently started, I mean, we've always had on-site printing of the checks for people as an option. We give free pay cards as well. But because of the last couple of hurricanes in Florida that have affected other parts of the world, right? Like Tennessee had snowstorms or whatever, and getting that's a main hub for FedEx. So because of delays of checks or whatever, we started reinventing the wheel, I guess you could say, and started really reaching out to our clients and saying, hey, if you want to do this, this is the printer you need. You needed to have a Micker ink so you can print, and we have the checks. We send you the checks, you stick them in your printer, we send you the file, you push go, and it prints all the checks out. And so you're done, and it meets the compliancy. Plus you're meeting the deadlines of when you have to pay your people. So, and you're not having to take over that cost of overnighting or being afraid that because there's a storm in your area or whatever, that your checks aren't going to be delivered and you're not going to meet that compliance of having those guys paid within the 7 days. So that's another thing that we started offering more to our clients now, that most people don't offer that.
No, that's great. And then what about, and then there, as far as how the client would process a payroll, it literally is done online as if they're doing it with QuickBooks or Paychex or ADP. So then they print their checks out right there at the office, right next to their computer. So it's just like using QuickBooks.
It could even be simple. It could even be simpler than that, Eric. Honestly, if when you're dealing with ag, you can just send us the hours. We'll do it for you. We send you the file. It's an encrypted file. You press print, it prints your check. So if you don't want to have to worry about learning the technology of our platform, which is very simple, we make it so simple for you. We have a spreadsheet that we created a formula for. You put the hours in it, send it to us. We do all the work, and we send it back, and you hit print, and it's done. It's so easy.
That's perfect. So yeah, you got both options really. You got like an automated way to get it done that's very similar to what the client's doing now in-house, if they are in-house. And then you've got it where you can just do the soup to nuts for it, for them, and then they hit the print button, which is fantastic.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So yeah, because I normally don't like to get into so deep in the weeds with payroll, like I said, because it in the general sense it's not as important that important, but this it sounds like it'd be a huge factor. Like, do the clients respond really well to that you can take care of all this? I mean, is it a good positive response most of the time about payroll?
Yeah, we actually have a lot of people that don't even realize, a lot of people are so uneducated, they don't even know that it's a possibility to do. They come for you for help with workman's comp or whatever, or they come for you for payroll, and then you're able to offer them the whole package, like you were saying, because of the PEO. But the main part of it is that in the H-2A space, they come strictly for the compliance. So it's not even about payroll. And so like agents and stuff, or even people that are doing it at home and that they want to grab that and bring those people in as a prospect, this is something they can offer and say, you're taking a lot of the stress off of yourself. You're relinquishing that stress and giving it to someone else and letting them do it, because they're going to pick up everything with the pay as you go. Workman's comp is outrageous. And if you have to pay $7,000 up front with us, it's live. Whatever hours you put in, that's what we're charging you for. And you get to look at it. Everything is broken down. We don't bundle anything. So that's another positive aspect of it as well.
No, that's fantastic. Yeah, that page to go is great for cash flow, and that's important.
Heck yeah.
And then, so like, what are you seeing out there right now as far as the work comp market for agriculture? Are there just a lot of now? Is it even more limited than it used to be? What is there? Is it a hard market, soft market? What's been going on?
About 3 years ago, when I really started doing this hardcore, there was a major busing accident up in a Kissimmee area, and so Benchmark, which was one of the major ag providers, was like, we don't want to do this anymore. And so our company went to Sons and said, what do we got to do to work together? Because just like we were talking about earlier, people need food. And so there has to be a market for it. And they went in with Sons to be able to open up the door for us. And they created a tiered premium so that way, when we're looking at risk, we can tier them where they need to sit based on their losses. So, it's been completely successful. We even have some, people that are over on Sons just because our program has gotten so good that we're able to throw some other people in there. So with ag, there's something called the bunkhouse rule, and they have to be covered 24 hours a day. So Sons is very aware of that. Sons has been in the ag space for a very long time, covering agricultural people. And so when we're working them, we just know what to ask for so that we can kind of look at it and review it. And with our channel partners or agents, we kind of give them a really good rundown of what to look for so that you know if it's going to be a good fit or not. The cool thing about Sons is that you can have a conversation with them and tell them, how long the client's been doing this or what might have happened, the situation, and they'll actually sometimes overextend and give them the benefit of the doubt and just put them at a higher tier. And if they've proven themselves, they can take them back down lower. So I think that the program has been great for the last 2 years, honestly.
That's awesome. And then talk a little bit about like group transportation. You kind of alluded to with that bus. So is there any way to mitigate, any kind of issue like that, or like it is what it is. You've got to deal with the group transportation because the farm labor contractor's got to move the people from housing into the fields, right?
Yeah, it just depends on where housing is located. A lot of housing is located right within, minutes of the site. Whenever we're doing our risk mitigation reviews, we look and see if they're within a 50-mile radius of where housing is to the farm. I would say 9 out of 10 clients are that. Sometimes it might exceed 60 to 65 miles. But there's a third-party transportation that's now become something that a lot of the farmers will utilize. So when they're bringing the people in from long distances, they use that so that the risk is kind of off of them. And that's been something they've been using. I mean, most recently, 2 weeks ago, there was a major accident here in Florida. The group of workers had just arrived and they lived 11 miles. The farmer lived 11 miles from me. He's taking his people up to go work and start their work, and a drunk driver hit them and killed 8 of the individuals in the car, so in the van, or bus, I'm sorry. So, that's something that is just like you and I. You can't really change what happened. A drunk driver hit them and it was an accident, which is what it is. So, when they look at those things, safety is always first, but there's all kinds of things that they do when they get their NCS 150s and look at the MVRs of the drivers. They look at the inspections of the buses and inspections of whatever they're going to be riding in, whether it be a 16 passenger van or 15 passenger, what their endorsements are, and look at I think they look at 5 years of their MVR. So they do everything that they can to protect, but the same thing could happen to you or me. So they take that into consideration. It obviously, because there's 53 people on a bus, it breaks out the news and it's like this really traumatic thing, but it's not any different than what could happen to you or I working as salesmen and driving our vehicles and being in an accident. It's the same concept. So.
Got it. Yeah, that's great about the third parties can just handle it for them, the transportation done. Also,
and we try to hook people up with that. So we have contacts here at Harbor America. So we actually introduce it to some of the people and say, hey, you might want to use them because they have good reviews or whatever, and we know them. So
is there like a minimum size account that you can write, like number of employees or maximum?
My smallest account has 2 H2A workers, and my largest account has 937.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And then, is there another sector that's not H2A, or is it mostly H2A?
I mean, we do domestic ag as well, and we cover domestic agricultural, which would be your domicile, the people that are able to live here, in our states and work. The ratio of what we see is probably 70-30. 70% of the business is always H2A, only because of the work, the labor itself. A lot of people don't want to do it anymore. So, and people from other countries are begging to come here and work to take money back to their families. So, but we do domestics. I think we have maybe 7 companies that are domestic and even into the landscaping sod aspect of it. A lot of people don't consider that agricultural, but it's still on, like, the sod is still on the ag niche. So we have those clients as well on the SUNS program. We can also put them on key risk as well.
PNC agents, have you run into Byberg, which is a Berkshire Hathaway company quoting workers' comp for either your prospects or clients? Well, great news. Insured Solutions, a national MGA, has an appointment that is set up to allow you to quote, bind, and service Byberg at your agency. And the coverage is in all states. It's A-rated. Startups are even accepted. There's $125,000 maximum premium. And some of the tough industries they write are construction, transportation, that includes towing and parcel delivery, manufacturing, security guards that are armed and unarmed, motor mediation, and many more. So go to our website at insuredsolutions.net, click the Get Appointed link. We'll get you logins for you and your team, and can set up a webinar for training if you'd like. Also, feel free to email info@insuredsolutions.net, and I can handle the submission myself, or call 770-402-5343. Be glad to speak to you and give you more detail. Thanks. Okay. Yeah, these are programs, by the way, that are, under the Harbor America umbrella, that have high deductible programs. A client doesn't really have a deductible, or it is, maybe it's small, but these are $1 million, $2 million per claim deductibles. So it allows to basically aggregate some of the risk, and then, of course, lower the price and be able to accept the risk of the ag workers. And why don't you talk a little bit about the hazards or what have you of 24-hour exposure in this arrangement?
So because they're non-domicile, they're not from our country, the bunkhouse rule is something that has to be really explained and expressed to new clients, and explain that what that is, because you're bringing these guys over from another country. They may or may not know each other. They're rooming together, and if one of them decides they're going to drink a couple extra beers or whatever that night, and they get into a fight, workman's comp covers that, because they may have to go to the hospital for a broken nose or whatever. So that's why the bunkhouse rule sometimes seems like so scary for people to think, like, oh my God, they're going to have to carry them 24 hours a day. But the reality of it is that these people are handpicked, the backgrounds are checked. There's always going to be one bad fruit in the bunch, typically, but we've never had a client that's had an incident like that. So I think that in the housing, the rules, they go through a safety training as soon as they arrive over here. There's a safety training that's done. It tells them everything that they need to know about where they're staying, how they need to act, drinking, staying hydrated, even their eating, all of that stuff, about their not taking the batteries out of the fire. What is that thing called? The smoke detector.
Right.
Because they cook in their places, and then, Lord God, they use a lot of manteca, a lot of grease, so they have smoke, and they want to take the batteries out. So they're even trained about the importance of why they should not. So that's something that's included whenever they come over, and it's a must with the Department of Labor and Wage and Hour to train them on that training. So
how do you guys assist with that training? Are you involved in that? Or is that mainly
we have, Jennifer is, both of us have certifications to train. A lot of these people, whoever they're using for their petitioner, whenever they come over, they've already included that in the cost. So it's about a 45-minute training, and each of the workers sign off on it, that they understand it and they've taken it. And so that you can have, something to cover your butt with in case of, we call it having a gold star with your workman's comp carrier. And even with OSHA, you've shown that you've done your due diligence to teach these people the way to do things. And, you've done everything in your power to train them in the right way. So
you got, so the common accidents in, I guess, auto, some kind of issue between the actual, employees. What about any other back or what's the common stuff you're seeing that's causing, the pricing?
It just depends on the commodity. Like when they're doing watermelons, they use little knives to cut. So sometimes if they're going too fast, they may cut their finger. Depending on the different mechanics that they're using, we've had a major accident that happened last year where they like to wear long sleeve because it keeps them out of the sun. And we've already, trained them. They've signed something saying that they're going to have it buttoned, and a guy didn't, and it like really, the machine pulled him in. But when they're tossing watermelons, I mean, they typically are on the ground, they're tossing them up. So if the guy that's catching doesn't catch good and the watermelon hits his finger, you could, have some broken fingers. But I mean, those are the more common ones.
I
But
guess
really,
picking up the height on trees, right?
well, for citrus, we don't have too many clients that are doing citrus anymore, that they're not actually using ladders. They have tree shakers and stuff like that. So, but we don't have a lot of clients. Citrus, particular in Florida, the citrus industry has kind of gone to crap. So they've switched to blueberries. A lot of the citrus farmers are doing blueberries, or even doing peaches here in Florida now, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So no other real major injuries then, other than what we talked about.
Back in the day, there used to be people falling off of ladders and hurting their backs because of carrying around the bags of the trees. But the citrus industry has changed so much. A lot of it comes from outside and it's brought in now. So it's not something that we typically see a lot right now of.
Makes sense. And then, back to well, I guess while we're on the claims, like, what's the process? They report the claim immediately, the client does. So to walk through like what kind of service you guys are doing for the client.
So they typically would report it right then to their supervisor. Their supervisor usually calls like to the office, and then they usually call us and they're like, hey, what do we do? And we have a direct person in our department at Harbor America that then does all of the the follow-up on it. So, but usually the farmer, because they know me and Jen's cell phone number, they're calling me like, hey, so-and-so cut himself with a paring knife while he was cutting eggplant or whatever. What do I do? And we'll like assess it. Well, how bad is he bleeding? Take him to the nearest urgent care center. We'll go ahead and get everybody in place, because we want obviously, just like with anyone, we would want what's best for the individual at that time. With heat exposure, same thing. They're all trained about heat exposure, because now in Florida, which would be your most common one, Florida and Georgia, it doesn't matter if the temperature says it's 90 degrees outside, they do a heat index. So the OSHA and Wage and Hour and Department of Labor have instigated this mechanism that you carry around, and it's a gun-like looking thing, and you hit it and it does this little thing, and it tells you exactly what the heat index is. And so they've established this new stuff where if it's over 98 degrees, you have to give 10-minute to 15-minute breaks every so many minutes. If it's over 118 degrees heat index, you have to call it a day. Stop. Once you've gotten to 11 o'clock or whatever, you can't work anymore. Now they'll allow them to go work at night, but then they've also put into place about night lights and how they have to work with lights to be able to get the crop and meet this 3-quarter contract. So you think about injuries being with cutting yourself or hurting yourself, but last year, 2 guys died from heat exhaustion. They got overheated and they started vomiting and they died. So.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I guess, do you offer like a nurse case management triage or any of that as well? With a claim to just try to, first aid when you can.
So whenever we when we went to Las Vegas last year for our education, that is something that they want someone to be certified on site with CPR and with the capability to save a life. So first responder training is what they're actually asking all of the supervisors or farm labor contractors to be trained on in the field within however many blocks. So it's something that the government is actually requiring, which also lets us know that someone's on site with them, whether it be a nurse or a first responder or whatever, or they have to be within so many minutes of an urgent care center or hospital. So those are some of the safety things that are being taken care of. And it allows us to be, that second point of contact, but the person in the field be the first point actually to try to, save the life. So.
And what about on the risk management side? Is it more telephonic and paper? Is it in person? Like, how do you get the risk pieces put together?
We send a person out. We send a person on site. I mean, the first obviously is a phone call, but then we send one of our own
Risk
people
manager.
out.
Okay,
Mhm.
so risk manager goes out and then implements all the different requirements they're supposed to have, plus all the knowledge that you have at Harbor about ag to try to,
Mhm.
get ahead of it, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and then you can provide some of the safety training. I guess then you bring in third parties if you don't have that, particular location covered. That is that kind of what you do for?
Well, we do the safety, we can provide them with, we even create safety manuals, and that's one of the questions we ask them whenever they hire on. But we do on site, but then we also have, like I was saying, that whoever petitions the people, it's required for them to have to go through that WPCPS training. So they're either paying the farmer or FLC is paying a third party to come in and do it to make sure that training's taken care of.
Excellent. And as far as is there any need for employee benefits like with the owners or any of that, or is that not necessarily a
I
need
mean,
short term?
they're supposed to meet, what the requirement is. If you have more than 25 employees, something that they always run into is obviously there's not going to be anybody that participates. So because you're with the PEO, we do offer MEC plans. We offer Hooray Health, which is also something that falls underneath that. And then we have some other options that we offer for like the administrative staff and stuff like that as well. So yeah. That comes up. It's a question that comes up not all the time, but it is something that we can definitely assist with.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I could see why they wouldn't participate, being they're going back in, 10 months or what have you.
Yeah.
Um, and what are you seeing as the cost savings normally, or is there not really a savings, it's more of an actual benefit because you're doing so much, like,
The way that I like to quote my farm labor contractors, and they give us, everyone has, I think, what's called a tiering system based on the number of employees, right? We don't ever look at it based on the amount of weeks that they're doing, but the head count. Um, we get the convenience of charging whoever we want. On an ag space, for me, I like to do a per check charge. And the reason I do is because that farmer or that farm labor contractor has a 3/4 contractual agreement that says, I'm bringing 70 people over. I'm going to make sure that from day one, March 15th till August 15th, they're going to work, and I'm going to guarantee that they're going to make whatever that rate is at 48 hours is the minimum that they typically put on a ETA 7090, working Monday through Saturday, or sometimes they work on Sundays. It just depends on what they write, guaranteed. And I have to meet that quote. I have to meet that 3/4 guarantee. So for an ROI or a budgeting aspect, if you did it on a ratio and those people are working 52 hours, 59 hours, 60 hours because it's ag and you're really not under any overtime, depending on the niche. Now, like in gins and stuff, cotton and stuff like that, they do have to pay overtime, but it allows you to budget for it. So when you're going to get that money, because the farmer hires the FLC to go do the work, right? The FLC says, I'm going to do all of your acres for 50 cent and 50 cent a piece or whatever. They can take that per check fee, know that if it's 10 employees, and it's costing you $13 a check or whatever, that this is how much it's going to cost me. If I add 4 more people, this is what's going to cost me. Where when you're doing it by a percentage, you never know, because you don't know what the hours are going to be based on the day. Because like what we were just saying, you may have to cut off during the day because of the heat,
oh yeah,
right? So that's going to extend your time there, or you're going to have to make up for it at night, or make them come earlier in the morning when it's cooler. You never know. So that's how we try to help people in the ag space to keep the cost low, and for them to have budgetary purposes by knowing that if it's 10 people at $10, it's going to cost me $100 a week for you guys to do everything and take that load off.
makes sense. Um, and on that note, so that's just your fee for the service then, right? That doesn't include the workers' comp, or does
No.
that?
So your workman's comp will be based on the state that you're in and what the code is, obviously. So if it's 0008, if you're just, ground crops, then it's different. If you're doing berries, it's different. It just depends on what the code is.
Right,
But
class
we
code state.
also, But we also, we have the capability to, because we have so many people doing that we can be below what the cost in a PEOS, setting below what the cost of regular workman's comp is, because you're underneath our federal ID number.
So you've seen that happen where the fee for service and the discounting of the work comp is either at or below what they could just get workers' comp only many times, or is there?
I think that happens a lot, but I also think that the benefit there is that these guys are already on a budget, right? And they're in a contract and they're trying to make it. And without them having to take, like we were talking about, because it's pay a go, not having to worry about paying $7,000 or $6,000 a head for the workman's comp, then financing it, which we all know that costs a fortune, and then having to come back and worry about auditing it later, depending on what your employees paid out and all that good stuff. I think that at the end of the day, they just want to sign and say, okay, here, take my money on, and you send my checks and I'm good with it. And that's where I think that it's better to use us. And they're seeing the benefit of using us too. It's not all, sometimes for them, it's not about the money. Something that always, even I tell my own children, is that how much do you want to make an hour? So if you want to make $25 an hour and 15 of those hours you're not able to work because you're over here doing paperwork that really you're not constituting as getting the work done, because when you're a farmer, you're hands-on. You're driving a tractor yourself, you're picking the plastic yourself, you're throwing seed, whatever, you're walking, you're a field walker. There's so many things that go into that, and you're taking this off of the plate. So it's really, you're measuring the scales and seeing how much beneficial, because you're out in the truck more of the day than you're in your own bed. So
Makes sense.
You don't have people at the office. You don't have office people, office staff. A lot of these guys, farmers may have that, but farm labor contractors do not. And your farm labor contract is the one that's bringing the workers. And that's our number one client. We have more farm labor contractors as clients than we have as actual farms. Because the farmer wants to do co-employment as well.
And I hate to put you on the spot, but I don't know if you remember the number. Do you have any kind of guesstimate of how much premium or payroll you're processing when you are at full speed, during the season?
I can tell you off the top of my head, just 2 clients that I have that are within 20 minutes of me, what I see that their average payroll weekly for one is about $156,000 for one client.
Okay.
So, and that's just right here. That's just 2 people that I know that I see their payroll, because it comes through my email. But I mean, at a rate of $150,000 to $170,000 a week for one, there's 37 crews. That's one crew. It's a lot we have a lot of payroll. We're doing very, very well.
That's great. And Sons is happy with the relationship so far and are going to continue on, right?
Yep, they've been very happy with us this year. We haven't, to my knowledge, we've only had no one small claim. We haven't had anyone like have a major claim on ours. It's been like cutting at the tip of a finger or something like that.
Right. And knock on wood, right?
Yeah, knock on wood.
And then anything else you can think of that would be helpful for agents as like want to potentially get into this niche if they're not already in it?
I think that when you're thinking about, a growth plan, right? You're thinking of pivoting. So, you may not really understand the ag space, but I mean, obviously you go home, like we were saying, and you got eggs, you got tomatoes, you got whatever vegetable salads, whatever that you're doing. And even, if you can think of it outside of the box and just find another way to, bring home the bacon to your own family, in a sense, another way to grow by offering this, because there's farms everywhere. Like so often in PEO, like when people even come and talk to me, they're like, oh my God, there's 32 farms in my area. I wonder who they use for payroll. There's probably at least that many in your area, that are right around you. And why wouldn't you try to get them as a customer as well? Like if you're only focused on, it's high dollar, 6 weeks payroll can be a $2 million payroll. Why wouldn't you do it?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sense. And plus, what I've noticed, and you probably can back this up, is that when you do combine services and offer the payroll and pay-as-you-go work comp and so on, it's sticky. I mean, they stay with you longer. The retention is very high versus just the traditional work comp, looking at a rate and having to shop it every year because it's an auto renewal,
Yeah.
with you guys. And then speaking of that, talk about the auto renewal. Like, have there had to be increases for clients? Are there been reductions? What's the norm? Is it based on every client? What's been the norm?
We haven't, we, last year, we did, a like we reviewed our rates for admin and workman's comp. And we didn't have to charge anyone any extra, like right where we were in line. And that's another thing that we do is we look, a lot of companies, if you're paying out the yin yang, they loving it. They're going to keep you paying out the yin yang, but we look and we go in and see, you know, the different demographics of it and look and see what's going on. And if we're able to keep the people where they are, if they're eligible for a little bit less or whatever. And thank God last year we didn't even have to increase anyone's stuff because everybody was right in line where they needed to be.
Right,
So
they're all on one if they're under the PEO model,
yeah.
they're all on one large master policy, as we discussed, let's say with Sons. It is a high deductible, so you have a lot of control over that
Yeah.
pricing. And then if one client is just probably not participating as well in the risk and having claims, they might be the one that has to absorb an increase. But if all the other
Mhm.
clients are doing well, you can spread that risk
You can
among
spread it out. Exactly.
billions of dollars, like we said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, so I think, that's important too. The options you have, right? The agent could write the work comp and then potentially add you in with the payroll, effectively doubling their commissions because they're going to get paid on both. They can offer just standalone work comp if it fits within that QBE program that you can, attach. Um, and have it, just workers' comp on a pay-as-you-go basis with no payroll, or they could plug QBE back into the PEO if that client really wants all those services, right? So
Yes,
you got
sir.
a lot of different ways now to interface with you to get this, the services.
Yep.
Also, I know like in Insurance Solutions, when I have a prospect, like I am so bad at the ag discussion. I always, every single time, pull you in to do the presentation with me. Again, normally in the space I'm in, we don't usually get on the phone that much, with the agent and the client, or if we do it, maybe a specialized product like the PEO. But I like bringing you in as the expert, especially those agents that are just getting into the space. I'm assuming you'll still offer that
Oh
as a
yeah,
service.
I have people like that. I have some up in the Orlando area. I have a person in Texas and they'll either just do a phone call like we did, or we'll do a Zoom or a Teams meeting and you know, introduce me to the client and the client can ask me and they don't even sometimes they won't even say where I work. They're bringing me in only as somebody that specializes in it because they may not want to go that route, but they want to offer the service. And then if the person is like, yeah, I'm interested in it, then they'll bring me back in and we'll bring Jennifer in as well as another our operations compliance field operations compliance person that I work with as a second, like we say, like a second call or whatever, if they're interested in it. So, because at first people are just thinking, they may think, why do I need that? Like I've been doing this, trying to do it like this. But then when you really wrap your mind around how easy it is, how much it takes the stress off, what all we're filing, knowing the laws of ag, that's the prime thing, knowing the compliance of it. And and the other thing is if we don't have the answer, we have our internal HR, we can go and ask them for a question because there's HR things that come up that because of the world we live in right now that just you don't even see coming sometimes. So you have the big brother back there when you're in a PEO to even bring in other legal questions, whatever that you're going to be together in. So
Yeah, makes sense. And then I like that you can jump on. You are just the marketing representative or ag expert for
mhm.
the agency, and sort of white label it like that, and then you're able to answer all the harder questions that maybe I wouldn't know. I definitely don't know. So I like having the confidence to bring you in. And one of the presentations I brought you in, you're very low key, you just give the information, and then you and I have exited the call and left it with the agent at that point to kind of go
Mhm.
through more with the customer by
Yes,
themselves.
sir.
So that works out really nicely. And so, as far as working together, as far as agencies that might, want to work with us. So I think the best way to keep it simple is to go through me at Insured Solutions for now. And then I will set up the call with Kimberly, to discuss the risk that they have and to see if it's a fit. You can reach me at info@insuredsolutions.net, and my cell number is 770-402-5343. And I'll pull Kimberly or one of her team members if she's not available in to help us. And the great news, again, is there's so many options that we don't necessarily, if the client doesn't like, one of the three, hopefully, or all, the one with the payroll, we could hopefully fit it in, depending on the risk, to some of the other programs we mentioned too. And Kimberly, anything else you can think of that we should cover?
Oh, I think that we did great. I think that, like we said, that it's a great opportunity to open up another niche into your business. So I would definitely reach out to Eric because he will bring in the people to help you.
Absolutely. No, I
Mhm.
appreciate it, Kimberly. Thanks again for coming on, and I'll be talking to you soon as well.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks again for tuning in to Insurance Shop Talk. If you enjoyed our deep dive into the latest trends, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Until next time, I'm Eric Stein, and this has been Insurance Shop Talk.